Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. Diving into it today, in terms of news, the really only biggest piece of news that we have is that the Wilds Beyond the Witchlight adventure module is out. It dropped today. Yeah. It was released digitally on D&D Beyond over the course of the last night, and orders are being released at your game stores presumably today as it goes. I'm going to be getting my copy in the next 2 days. I'm very excited about that. I did get the digital copy, so that is actually what we're going to be talking about today when we get to that point. Other than that, D&D Celebration is coming up this upcoming weekend. I will talk more about that as we get closer to it, but it is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event that's all going to be online, which is super cool, with a preview on Thursday. So if you are able to and would like to see that, plan on having that be part of your weekend this week. In terms of D&D streams, I do not have any on the calendar for today. However, I know that there are some that are going on these days where I don't have any that I know of. The best way to find some, if you're looking for some to watch, is to just go to the D&D category of Twitch and to just sort of scroll and see what's going on. There's always people playing, because people all around the world play the game. So no matter what time it is, you should be able to find at least one game going on Twitch, if that is what you're looking for. That is everything I have for the top of show announcements. So without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? So as I mentioned, today we are taking a first look at the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Again, this book came out within the last 6 hours for me. So I don't have a super great overview of the whole thing. This is literally just the a little bit of notes that I got scribbled down in order, or in the time to before I shot this, in order to be able to actually deliver some of the information to you guys. I will be doing a full Wild Beyond the Witchlight overview at the end of the week on Friday. Probably sort of like a review kind of thing. This is going to be a first look. I'm going to keep it as spoiler free or spoiler light as possible, but it is impossible to talk about this book really with any amount of meaning without having at least small spoilers coming in. From what I can tell, I have avoided the major story things, and I'm going to hopefully be avoiding accidentally slipping and saying something for a major story thing. But if that becomes the case, or if I accidentally do slip one of those in there, I will do my best to tag it. But again, I don't really know. I have a sense of the overarching story, but I don't know exactly what we are actually getting into here because I have not had a chance to fully read the book. I will be doing that this week, and there will be a heavily spoilered video on Friday about it that'll actually probably be a little bit longer because I'm going to want to dig into pretty much everything that's going on there. But let's dive into the actual book, shall we? First off, the Wild Beyond the Witchlight is an adventure module again. So if you are looking for a source book, this is not what you're going to be wanting to find. Sorry about that, but that is sort of the way it goes. They are coming out with 2 more of those later this year, so we'll be okay. I promise. But the Wild Beyond the Witchlight is a adventure module, which means that you are running the game 4 players using this as your guide, we'll say, through the adventure. In the intro section of the book, there are 2 new player races, 2 setting-specific backgrounds. Yeah, we'll stop there for that for a second. Talk about this because they're in the intro, these two races look pretty cool, honestly. They are a fairy and what is essentially a rabbit person. They are called the Harengons. Um, they are both obviously a little bit more setting specific because they are Feywild adjacent or Feywild attached, but the fairies are obviously fey creatures, while the Harengons are humanoid creatures, which is, to me, an interesting choice. The Harengons have a similar sort of vibe from a few of their different things to satyrs almost, because they're jumpy creatures, I guess. I don't know. They've got a feature that lets them jump. Um, they've got actually they've got a like rabbit's foot kind of feature where they can use a reaction to add a d4 to something. I can't remember exactly what they were. I want to say it's a roll that you fail, other than probably a death save. And then the fairy are the ones that we got in the Unearthed Arcana. Fey creatures have a fly speed, all around pretty cool. Definitely check those out, if absolutely nothing else out of this book, because having those options open are always good, particularly if you are a DM and you're trying to build out NPCs just sort of like randomly, and you don't want to just rip straight from monster stat blocks. And there's nothing wrong with that. The two setting specific backgrounds, you get one that is a Witchlight hand. So you are like a carnival worker from the Witchlight Carnival, which is pretty cool, and we will talk about that a little bit more in just a second. Sorry, my hair is all up in my ear in a weird way. And you also get a Fey Lost option, where you are somebody who has wandered into the Fey as a child, and then you end up coming back. They are both cool. They've got some cool flavor to it. The Fey Lost obviously is a little bit more widely applicable than the specifically Witchlight hand is, because of these setting implications, I guess. However, the Witchlight hand seems like a modified version of an entertainer almost. So if you take the entertainer, you could achieve a similar sort of feel. This one is just obviously much more specific to this setting. In addition to those two player options, you have a pronunciation guide and a couple of character trait options in the intro. But the things that I like the most in there, as a DM reading through the intro just a little bit, you have two different adventure hooks. One of them is focused on being a more traditional kind of adventure, so more of your like, classic adventuring party kind of thing. And you've got one that has the characters having a much more personal connection and stake in it, which I think is cool. I can't think, it doesn't mean there isn't one, but I can't think of another one that has that sort of thing. My guess is it would be one of the more recent modules that have that, if any. But again, I can't think of any. You also get a story tracker, which is pretty cool. Looking at it, it's more a guided notes page, which is fine, and honestly not bad at all. I was a little bit disappointed with that when I saw it. I love a good story tracker. I love something that helps you stay on track. But I was hoping for more of like a Storm King's Thunder kind of like outline layout kind of thing, because that I have always thought is a phenomenal way to help visualize the story beats that you are going to get through. And this one leaves it a little bit more open, which is great, but it feels a little almost like a cop-out, because it is just kind of a guided notes page with titles and stuff like that. But I'm sure it will be super helpful in actually running the adventure, because of the way that this whole thing is going to be written out. Moving forward into, there are 5 different chapters of the book, plus the appendices and the introduction. So we're going to go into chapter 1 right now, which is the Witchlight Carnival. In this chapter, they lay out effectively what the carnival is, how it gets there, that sort of thing. It is a traveling carnival that shows up once every 80 years, from what I read. That's not really a spoiler. That's just kind of what would be on a poster. Um, in chapter 1, also to be clear, this is the part where all of the things that I say get a lot more vague because I don't want to accidentally slip and say something. Um, in chapter 1, they outline events that could happen at the carnival, different moods that can shift through the carnival, and I'm pretty sure Chris Perkins talked about this, so I feel more okay with talking about this specifically. The actions of the patrons of the carnival can affect the overall carnival's mood, and in turn affect how the carnival is actually like operating, which is a cool kind of thing. It makes it feel like more of a living experience, and it makes it feel like your actions have consequences on the immediate world around you, which is always fun. And they have several people of the carnival, in addition to a couple of the creatures that they might have there. They have stat blocks for a couple of different monsters, a couple of different people, and they have lists of different locations within the carnival that exist, which is pretty cool because it gives the players then something to go do and interact with. So I am excited to dig in to chapter 1 and see what they've got, because I have run festivals and stuff in games, and they've always felt almost like a little bit too big for their own good, because they are massive festivals. And so seeing a written out carnival that will allow the DM to sort of take it and adapt it as they go, I think is going to be really cool and really helpful. So if you get nothing else from that chapter, hopefully you'll be able to pull running a festival of sorts as you go. Moving forward into chapter 2, it introduces you to the domain of Prismeer, which is the like chunk of Feywild that you're going into, because they can't let you just run around the entire Feywild and have it be a story, which is fair, honestly. So you are introduced to the domain as a whole of Prismeer, and in chapter 2 you are specifically introduced to the sliver of it known as Hither. In this section under the domain of Prismeer, you have transformation of the realms, death, and foraging rules. So because the Feywild is such a reactive place, it has a lot of lists and tables related specifically to how the realm may change over the course of the time that you're there, over the course of the weeks or months leading up to it or following, or how things might be affected by outside actions because of the way that the world works in this particular place. There are also special rules for death here because of the Archfey that has created this place or carved out this section. So those are pretty cool as well, with there being a relatively volatile possibility ranging from very bad to very good. That's one of those things that your DM is going to have to make the call on whether or not they want to use, because it feels like it could work well for an established sort of group, but it might be a little harsh for new players under some circumstances. In addition, you get some foraging rules, which I know a lot of people don't necessarily use, but it is cool and honestly kind of nice to get some further rules about foraging, specifically in the Feywild, because the place is crazy. Everything there could kill you if it wanted to. So it's helpful to have just a sort of a list of things that you can or can't eat, or a guide on how to find the things that you can or can't eat and whatnot like that. So that is kind of nice. Moving past the overview of the domain, there are the rest of the chapter is story beats and Hither features. Specifically, the features are the arrival there, important NPCs and locations, random encounters, and travel out of that area, moving the story forward. So it tells you how to get in. It tells you all the stuff you might run into while you're in there, and then it goes ahead and it pushes you out the other side. So that's helpful. That's how modules are supposed to work. But the fact that they have it broken down into this subsection specifically for the locations, creatures, and NPCs that you could run into is actually very helpful, because they're otherwise going to be dealing with this massive catalog that is just not conducive to actually trying to play the game. So that's really your overview of Hither. Chapter 3, you go to thither, I think. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot more to say other than it has the same stuff as Chapter 2, with the exception of the domain of Prismeer, because you already covered that. So it's got the other features, including arrival there, random encounters, important NPCs and locations, and travel forward. So it's got all the things you could need to just run that part of the story. From what I can tell, they are leaving, with the exception of the major story beats in there, which there are only a couple of in each section. You are free to just sort of do what it is that you want, which is honestly really pretty cool, because it means that they have fleshed out enough of the space around the adventure for the players to be able to sort of breathe and explore, but it doesn't let you run through the Feywild, which is honestly, again, a good thing. Moving forward from Chapter 3, we get to Chapter 4, which is Yan, which is the third subset of Prismeer, which again covers arrival in Yan, random encounters in Yan, important NPCs and locations in Yan, and then travel forward. So, again, same sort of thing that I literally just finished talking about. They allow you to explore the space, which is nice, in addition to having smaller story beats connected to this one. From what I could tell, there are a couple more interconnected things, and I think it's specifically because this is nearing the end of the actual story. At this point, they've got a couple more of these threads that they're sort of gathering back together, that they sort of sprayed at you in chapters 1 and 2, that are bringing themselves back and starting to have that payoff and fruition that you are actually looking for. And then Chapter 5, I am not actually going to say the name of, because I am not positive if it's going to be a spoiler or not. So I'm just not going to say the name of it. In addition to that, it is a short chapter. There are a ton of these subsections in chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and chapter 5 is, what I can tell, the shortest one by a significant amount, presumably because it is the climax chapter. It's really limited to travel and exploration, as well as your final sort of encounter, from what I can see, which is cool, honestly, because having that be a little bit more isolated is probably appropriate, really, all things considered. So skipping over 5, more or less, we are going to go to the Appendices. The Appendices are often my favorite part of new books, because it is where all of the just distilled information about the crunchy stuff that is in the book is. You obviously have your magic items, which are cool. The ones that I saw throughout were pretty cool. Most of them, honestly, that I caught as I was skimming through were powerful as well, which is a little scary, but makes sense given that the Feywild is a crazy kind of place. There are also factions that you will run into. The whole story is driven by one of these factions, so there's good information on them there, including how to sort of flesh it out a little bit more than what you were just handed throughout the rest of the book, which is nice. My favorite appendix, from what I could tell, was Appendix C, which is where the creatures are. The monster stat blocks for this one are kind of crazy. You've got things ranging from frog soldiers to little sentient mushrooms to creepy animated dolls to literal giant dandelion people and pretty much everything in between. The Feywild is a phenomenal place to get some just weird creatures in, and I love it. It is so cool. I didn't get a chance to really sit on all of those stat blocks, but just scrolling through and seeing the art and checking sort of like challenge rating sort of things makes me very excited. I am very excited to get to sit down and really comb through those because they look pretty cool. From there, Appendix D are roleplay cards, and Appendix E are other printable things. So both of those things are things that you can print out and reference in your game as needed, which is always nice. Having things that you can hand out to your players is pretty much always going to be a hugely beneficial thing to them as well as to you, so that everybody has the information and can keep track of their own stuff most of the time. And that brings us to the end of the book. Choking on my tea a little bit. That's it. That's all it is. It's over. That's the end of the book. Overall, I am excited for this one. I love the idea of a Feywild thing as a whole, just anything, because honestly, we haven't gotten a ton of interplanar stuff so far, past what is originally listed in like the DMG and that sort of thing. So I am excited that we are looking into the Feywild, particularly because it's one of those that is layered on top of the material plane, essentially. You've got your Feywild and your Shadowfell that are like sandwiched around the material plane that are almost reflections of it in a certain way. So the fact that we are actually getting to dive into it makes me very much excited, and me very much excited to comb through it and be able to reflavor my Feywild a little bit better, just because it's been so open-ended, and it's been in my mind, just sort of like this crazy plant place with some crazy creatures and stuff like that. Which, from what I got, is pretty much what we're getting at here. But little random things that come up are going to be easier to just sort of like conjure out of nowhere, which is part of what I am most excited for. So, again, check this book out if you haven't already. Stay tuned for a full sort of rundown review of it on Friday. That is probably going to be a much longer episode because I have talked for over 20 minutes about it, and I have told you almost no real information other than just glancing through and first looking the book. So stay tuned for that because I am excited to get to do that. But that is everything I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in and for making me part of your morning routine. Thank you so much to all of my patrons who are the ones who are making this show possible. I really appreciate it, and I genuinely could not be doing it without you guys. If you want to hear this show in podcast form, go ahead and follow the link to my Patreon in the description below. I have a goal set up for once we hit a certain amount, I will be able to push this out as a podcast to as many of the major streaming platforms as possible. So go check that out. In addition to finding me sort of all over the place. So once again, thank you. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is, to stay tuned and continue to make this part of your morning routine, because I love doing this so far, and the more of you that do so will let me do it for longer. If you know of anybody who is looking at this book, thinking about getting it, go ahead and send them this video. Leave them a comment, tagging them, something like that, because all of the interaction does, in fact, help. As of recording this, we are so close to hitting 100 subscribers, which is ridiculous to me. I never really thought I would get here, especially not this fast. So if you've got, I believe we're at 93 as of recording this. If you've got 7 friends, send them this video and be like, hey, look at this. Maybe you'll like this guy. Who knows? But all of that credits, stuff, self-plugging, whatever aside, once again, thank you so much, genuinely. I very much appreciate it. And until next time, keep on rolling.